teams we have not played. I'm going to find the best team. And I'm watching the line of scrimmage. That's where it starts for us is how are they building their box? How are they building their edge? And, what are they successful at the line of scrimmage because of the players, because of what they're at getting the players to do, how much movement, that kind of stuff. So everything starts there for me. And then from there, I build it out into secondary.
What y'all do, Tracy?
Well, for us, I'm a little different, I guess. I call the game off the alleys. I've always sort of looked the edges of the defense. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to throw out film that isn't anything remotely like us. Because we're an 11 personnel team with a tight end. It's going to attach and detach. So the first thing I'm going to look at is, are you an odd front or an even front? What does your box look like? And then once I get that, then I'm just going to focus on the alleys. How are you inverting? What's your edge pressures? I don't get too caught up in what are you doing in the box. I just feel like in today's world, especially with what we do on offense, we're going to see a 6-man box somehow, some way. It doesn't matter how it's configured. We're going to see that. And so for me, I'm concerned about the alleys. So I'm gonna figure odd or even, and then it's alley looks for me. That's where we start.
That's great. What would you guys, from a standpoint of what your personal preference is, would you just watch the film and watch the alleys and then go back and watch it again for something else, or are you watching every play 5 and 6 times? Or what do you prefer?
I'm odd, man. I'm really odd about things. And when I tell people I do this, they look at me like I'm crazy. So we just finished the game on Friday night. I've watched our film. I've graded it. I've done all that stuff. I've got all our corrections and everything. So then I'm on to the next opponent. So I'm going to usually put about 4 hours in on Saturday morning. I'm a 5 a.m. wake-up guy pretty much year-round. So I'm going to get up and I'm going to crank out 3 or 4 hours of film, get a pretty good idea of what we're going to see, and then I'm going to hang with my family, do whatever we do, and then I'll get back on it that night. I'm usually going to put about 7 or 8 hours in on Saturday. By the time we get to staff meeting on Sunday, the game plan's pretty much done. I feel like I'd be remiss if I didn't say this before we kind of get going. The best thing we've ever done is this past season, our offensive philosophy got boiled down to 2 things. Number 1 was just be us, and number 2 was no daps. And in our world, a DAP is a dumbass plan, a dumbass play, or a dumbass penalty. If a kid that's a dumbass play. You knew the snap count. If you hit behind, we're ripping a touchdown run of 70 yards and you block somebody in the back, that's a dumbass play. But then coaches can have dumbass plans. So we would come in on Sunday, do our deal. I would write and I didn't do this to be like some guru, but I would write our game plan on a 4x6 note card. And basically that forced us to stay small. Mm-hmm. And so if we had any wrinkle, anything to add new, if it didn't fit on the note card, it didn't go. We scrapped it because we were getting away from just be us. So I know that kind of goes off in a different direction, but that's just something we really believe in that we're going to keep doing.
And that's kind of what I never put it like that. I love that. But that's kind of the mantra I was trying to start with in saying that if, we don't have this magic play for y'all to call on 3rd and 8 now. If you're waiting for that, then they all work. Just figure out what works for you, get the good kid the ball, whatever. What I like talking more about is how did you get to the point where you picked whatever Pete decided was his 3rd down and 8 play. How did you get there, And I think that's where when I've been right over the years, we got there in the right way, which is we got the ball to the good kids and formations the kids were good at, and we practiced it that exact way. We practiced not the good things but the bad things, and we were ready to go, So there's a medium amount of stuff you got to have in. There's not too much and not enough. There's a medium, and it's really hard for people that hadn't done it a lot to find that medium. They either want to have an answer for literally everything, and it's a dumbass plan, or they really only work it this one way and it works great against the scouts, and then they wonder why it looks like crap in the game. And so there's that medium point that we're kind of looking for. If you guys have a question, put it in the chat, and I'll make sure to ask these guys when we get a break. Anybody in here is listening. If you got a question, ask, because I just assume I know they would rather answer somebody's question than anything. So how much of a premium did you put watching the other team's personnel, the actual kids? Like, I put a high premium on that, by the way.
Yeah.
I was way more interested in that than I was the scheme, to be honest. But go ahead, Pete. What did y'all do for that?
Well, I'm going to backtrack for 2 seconds. And so, like Tracy, like you were saying, with Huddle now, you get the film early, and we spend so much time during the course of a week focusing on the game plan. What has kind of become my standard is we practice Thursday mornings. Our Thursday practice is 6:30 a.m., and we're off the field 7:45. Kids are getting showered and getting into the building. So when I walk off that practice field on Thursday morning, I actually jump ahead, and I'm like Tracy. I'm going to toss out everything from a formation structure, from a personnel structure that doesn't match what we do. So Thursday, I'm going to spend my free time because all the work's been done at that point. I tell the kids at the end of that practice, right, hay's in the barn. So I should be the same way as a coach. So I need to get my mind off of it, refresh, get on something else. So I move forward a week at that point if I have film. And I just go through the first time because you were asking, and I do nothing but tag formations that match personnel and formations that we run. Put that to bed Thursday by the time I walk out to watch our underclassmen play. And then on Friday, obviously my focus is back on that week. So Saturday morning when I get up, I've already built out, with the exception of the previous night's game, I've already built out some formation playlist. So I dive into those. So I will watch typically I may watch the previous night game from start to finish all the way through. The rest of the time, I'm looking at nothing but formations, and kind of taking a similar approach to what Tracy's doing. But we do. So our staff, we're an R4 team. So we drink the Dub Maddox Kool-Aid. And if you've seen Dub talk recently, that's one of the things he talks about is his grading accelerators for grading an opponent. So we break it down with our staff. My offensive line coach basically grades the opposing defensive line. The tight ends coach grades the linebackers. We have 2 receivers coaches. One grades the corners, one grades the safeties. And we use what's essentially the R4 plan for how we're evaluating those players. In each position, obviously, you're looking for different criteria. So one of the first things we do when we come in as a staff on Sunday, and I'm kind of looking at it all, is we sit down and we go around the room and we start with the O-line guy. Okay, Brett, talk to me about their defensive line. Who are the better players, right? And what they do in the R4 system is, it's not that it's, guys that have been doing it for a long time, right? You watch film, you can tell who the good players are. We're trying to identify, okay, he's a good player, but what is his exact strength? What is his exact weakness? Sometimes we've all been there with the best D lineman where we know the thing to do is go at him, right? And sometimes the thing is to run away from him. What we're trying to take it to that next step is, okay, run at him. Does that mean we combo him, or does that mean we try to trap him? Because he may be great against the combo, but he may not be good against the trap. So we're trying to identify that. My guys are going to use the cut up I send them. That's just those formation breakdowns that I've provided. So we're going to spend a lot of time trying to identify, what are the best ways to attack their best players, the best ways to attack their worst players, and then what fits in our system to make that happen so that we don't have to create.
Yeah, I think that's a key component of it too. If you're listening and trying to take a note or something, is keep in mind all what Pete said is great, because he's exactly right, unless you have to come up with a bunch of new stuff, in which case, what advantage did you really gain? If you already trap and combo, and you've trapped and combo since spring football, then pick which one you want to do. That's awesome. I see too many people trying to make stuff up because they know it'll work on this one sorry corner or whatever, but then it doesn't work in the game because you just hadn't gotten enough reps of it. So, that was really good advice. And I did the same thing with the formations, but I tell you what I started doing the last couple of years, which really helped me. I thought I just watched for personnel all week. We did all the scheme stuff, on Friday night, Saturday, Sunday. And we talked about it. We actually I didn't know that was exactly how the R4 did it, but we did the same kind of thing, Pete, where I made the guys watch the other side and they told me about every kid. And, but then I personally would watch it during the week.
Yep.
So it's Wednesday afternoon, Wednesday night, I'm bored. I'm just watching this one D end every play, watching the whole game, because I thought if I got notes on Wednesday or Thursday or even maybe Friday about this kid, I didn't have to scheme it up. I just knew we need to go this way. And we did have some games. I mean, I hope they ain't on here listening. We did have some games where we ran left every play at this one kid every play. We actually won a couple games where we'd see so much odd front, like a 50, and one outside backer is just significantly better than the other one. And we ran a lot of jet, buck, and stuff like that. We just ran away from them every play. Literally, just let them line up, ran away from them. And it was something I picked up on Thursday or maybe even Friday morning. It wasn't necessarily the exact game plan. We just knew so-and-so was better than so-and-so. And I could get a feel for that all week. And then some stuff, you had to go out there on Monday at the first practice already knowing about and kind of being ready to go. And so I thought being able to separate those things is something I got better at as I got older, because when I was younger, I wanted to have everything done on Monday, for the whole week and just practice it exactly that way. And it just don't always work like that. What'd y'all do to scheme up people, Tracy? Like individually, you were good.
Yeah, I mean, basically really similar to Pete. I mean, it's every position coach was going to look at who they were going to be dealing with. We would really focus more on – we were really going to try to find guys that we could attack. Like we got to the semifinals this year, and we played a team that was defending state champions, and they actually won it again this year. And they had an outside linebacker that I still can't figure out why Power 5 schools hadn't offered him. He's a freak of nature. And so our plan was we were going to identify where he was, and we were going to just work away from him. And when we were going to run at him, we were going to double him. And they did a real good job moving him around. But other than that, just try to find – we really are going to try to look at who's the edge of the defense and which one's better and which one's worst, and who's the worst secondary player. We like scheme-wise, we have rules and we follow our rules and we block what we block. And, if it's a really good 3 technique, then we got to deal with him within our system, and so – but we're always trying to look in the secondary to see who the worst is, so that's where we can kind of really focus.
Well, and, so Tracy, one thing you said, right, you said they did a really good job moving that kid around.
Oh, Lord,
That's one of the first things we're going to identify is once we realize, hey, this guy, this outside linebacker in a 3-4, he's really freaking good. What determines his alignment? Is it field-based? Is it pressure-based? Is it formation-based? Because, we spend a lot of time in 11P, just like I know Tracy does. And I know Tracy moves the tight end just like we do to change the strength. So that's one of the first things we're going to look at is if we can dictate where that kid lines up, whether he's a linebacker, a lineman, or a defensive back, if we can use formation to dictate where he lines up and then change the presentation for them, we're going to do it. I can say coming from my experience as a defense coordinator and anybody that ever coached against us, there was no secret what you were getting from us 90% of the snaps. I mean, we were what we were, and we believed in it. We hung our hat on it. Some of the smartest coaches we played understood that my will linebacker was my will linebacker for a reason. We weren't walking him down on the ball to get in an underfront. But if you traded the tight end, we had to make a decision. So bringing that same thought process over to offense, right? If you can take a kid that they try to protect all the time and you can recognize that on film, now put that kid in a situation where he's probably not getting the same reps because you're not seeing him have to execute it on film. And if you use movement in your offense and have the ability to stay within your game plan and your script and what you're comfortable with, that's another great way, I think, to attack personnel.
Yeah,
and
Trace. That's the thing now. I mean, it's all about. I mean, how many trips adjustments is somebody gonna carry?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
How many different ways can you get to trips? Mm-hmm. We're gonna move somebody on most snaps. 90% of the time, somebody's moving for us, and that's just bullets in our gun. I mean, that's not like we're trying to be creative and cute. That's just we're gonna set the tight end here and run power this way, or set the tight end here and run wide zone the other way, and but like trips is the big thing now. So I'm interested, Pete, like we see about 2 trips adjustments per week. That's usually
most teams have 2. Most teams have 2.
Yeah, I mean, is that what you guys are seeing too? Because that's where I feel like now it's, everybody's based. The box is the box, the alley's the alley, their coverages are their coverages, their blitzes. But you start seeing some DNA about people when you start looking at trips.
I would say most teams have 2. Harrison's in our region. They won the 6A title last year. They're moving up to 7A, and they've got a really good coaching staff. They've got a bunch of kids that are bought in, and you'll see them do some different things. They may carry 3. They'll play a kick where they cloud the corner and get safeties over the top. They'll buzz down and play 1. They'll buzz down and play 0. They'll buzz down and play 3. So you see variations with them. Outside of them, I think most of the time, especially if you're just going to line up in trips, I'm with you, Tracy. Most teams you're going to get 2, and that's all you're going to get. And if there is a third one, it's very much a situation, a pressure based. Mm-hmm. It's, hey, you can damn near tell the quarterback when you see this, here's what's happening.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. If you always think, guys, if you heard some of that, you want to take a note. Always think formation, shift, movement over new play, even in these situations. I mean, I know that's common sense, but
we use this term, and I think that, I'm sorry to interrupt. We use this term for a long time, and I think it's something as a young coach that I learned working for Gary Rankin. We're going to bleed a play dry.
Mm-hmm.
So we're a big wide zone team. So we're going to run wide zone every way we can out of every motion. We're going to bring the tight end across, outside in, inside out. We're going to do everything we can do. We're going to crack the box. We're going to bleed it dry. So we're going to simply wide zone for us to the right is 28. So we're going to call 28. We're going to call 28 14 different ways.
Mm-hmm.
Boundary field, it doesn't matter. We're going to just, and so that to me is something I'm glad I learned early is take a play and bleed that sucker dry, man. Just make it look like 40 different things and then have good play action off of it and quick game out of it, and you're good.
Your kids can only master so many things. And unless you're staying out there for 4 hours, you can only practice so many things.
Yeah.
Right.
So I, Tracy's a wide zone, and he and I have gone back and forth about this. We last year we put in mid zone. We sat down and met with some guys that had been really good at it, and some guys that even I had faced when I was coordinating that I knew I liked how they taught it because I knew how the problems it gave me. So we sat down and our kids took to it right away. And so that there's no doubt, right? If we were going to go in with 6 run plays in a game when one of them was going to be that mid zone, we were going to have that mid zone 8 different ways. Everything else we might have out of one formation, off of one hash. But when you find something, I know Chris, I know Parker, y'all used to, you ran buck sweep, and you guys were formation buck sweep and motion buck sweep. And when you find a scheme that your kids can live in those rules and have success, there's no reason not to window dress it, not to present it a different way, because the defensive coordinator, he can be a really freaking good coach. That doesn't mean his kids are recognizing what's going on as it happens.
Yeah,
no, that's right.
16-year-old.
Yep.
And what would happen for us is we get in, we put the tight end, we'd have an on the ball tight end and like an H back, and we put them on the side and we run buck sweep into the boundary. And of course, that worked when the team wasn't real good, but then they know you're running that way because you got that overload. And so then you motion a guy over to it or you trade to it and it works that way. So, what a rookie mistake always was, that worked the week before. We ran that buck sweep into the boundary, tight end the week before. Come back the next week and you run it 2 times and it doesn't work. You just say to hell with it, and call something else. And that's really not what you should do. Just trade a tight end, shift to it, and you end up in the exact same look. And you just run a buck sweep. You're just doing it with a little bit with maybe motion 2, motion away, trading tight end.
And it's your identity.
Yeah, that's who you are.
That's the thing. Like, we went into this season and our thought was we were going to be a buck sweep team. And we were a little bit, and then it just sort of we really started hammering wide zone in week 5, and funny, Pete and I have talked about it, and we've had several staffs talk about it lately. We don't run wide zone like everybody else. Ours is completely it's different. But it's who we were, and it's who we could be. And we rode that sucker, man. I mean, we rode it and rode it and rode it. But you know what? If the kids are comfortable in it, and it's 3rd and 3, I don't care where you are. 3rd and 3, backed up, going in, whatever. Hey, we're going to run this, and we can execute it.
Well, I'll tell you, we off of the buck sweep, we started blocking on. We saw so much odd, we just block on, pull the guards instead of running it like buck sweep, and it kind of turned into that wide zone-ish play. Probably one of our best plays the last 2 or 3 years I coached. But it looked like what we did. It fit into what we were already doing, and we had to buy into that. And then to the next point of contention here, if Pete said this already, but I'm going to hit on it. If you're talking about a specific situation, so it's you're in the red zone or it's 3rd and 11 or whatever that is, now I wouldn't do all that necessarily. Now we like sprinting out this one player. We like running a vertical here or whatever we decided we like. Then we were going to put the ball in that hash. We were going to run it about 80 times in practice if I could get away with it. And we only carried about 2 plays per hash for each one of those situations that I thought weren't base plays. You know what I mean?
Right.
So if we want 3rd and 6, we were either going to call one of these 2 medium yardage plays we had, or I was just going to run a regular play and go for it on 4th down, and then I didn't need that list. But we were going to call one of those 2 plays exactly how we ran it. So if we did shift to it or if we did motion, that was predetermined at that point. It was just something we schemed up, and we were going to do it this way. So I think you had to be able to have both philosophy, if that made sense. Sometimes you get in one formation, do it one way, exactly like you practice. And then if it's your base plays, you've been running since spring football, man, come up with some new ways of running things that are really the same thing. But you'd be surprised how much that'll affect the defense more than you trying to figure out this magic play that worked on what you think they were doing.
Yep.
What'd you guys do defensively? This is a much bigger issue than it is on offense, I thought. But what did y'all do looking at the other team when you were thinking about your down and distance? So, where did you just focus on 3rd down?
For us, again, probably the odd duck in the room. We don't spend a lot of time on it.
We didn't either, really.
No, I feel like, and I guess it's probably time to admit this too. I don't script practice. We don't write out a script. And the reason why is this: we move so many people, so often. I can't, like, if we've got 12 plays in an inside run period, I can't write, and we're going to run six wide zones and 6 counters. Well, I can't write out all the different ways we can run it because we can run it 4 million different ways. So literally on the script, it will simply say WZ/CTR. Mm-hmm. And now, look, we're going, and I'll have, times 4, times 6, whatever. We're going to run it that many times. So, and we would just, that way everybody was, and I thought it helped me in practice. Just instead of reading a script in practice, I was calling the game in practice. And so that was my same thing on down and distance. We didn't spend a lot of time on it, man. We just, we would get to Wednesdays and we would have, 3rd and short, 3rd and medium, 3rd and long, some red zone stuff. We worked the backed up stuff. I think that's more of a mentality than anything. Just, hey, you're on coming out, don't freak out. But no, we didn't spend a bunch of time on it. It was just every play is a different situation. And, I put that more on me as a play caller, to understand what we've done and who we are, and as opposed to getting our kids worried about, well, it's 3rd and 6, okay, so it's 3rd and 6.
So, Tracy, just out of curiosity, and then I'm going to jump back on topic. Mm-hmm. How would you card that for your scout team if you're out there not shooting from the hip, but you're out there jumping in the formation and the motion and the shift live? How did you card that to get the look you wanted, or did you want to see your kids react organically and execute?
So I'll answer the question twice. 2 ways. Number one, I did want to see how they would react. I had a great phone call the other day with Matt Drinkall, the tight ends coach from Army. Mm-hmm. He is an unbelievable outside the box thinker, and I believe a lot of things. He and I we kind of say we're kindred spirits. So, for example, if we're playing an odd front, I'm not going to draw cards. I'm going to simply say, hey, you're going to line up head up the tackle and slant in or out every play. Just mix it up. Slant in or out every play. Nose guard, head up the center, in or out every play. Other tackle, same thing. Inside linebackers, one of y'all bring a blitz every now and again, and then we would ID and point the outside backers coming. And so that way we weren't trying to waste time on our – not waste time is the wrong word. We weren't spending a lot of time trying to be – because trying to get the scout team right's expensive. And then you work all week long and you get in the game and they're not doing exactly what you thought. And, oh, God, well, so we just – and then if we're playing an even front, it was, hey, man, you're a defensive tackle. Every play either line up in a 3 or a 1. You're the other defensive tackle, 3 or 1. Well, we get 2 1s. Okay, great. We might get 2 1s in the game. We might get 2 3s in the game. We might get 2 2s. So we did it that way. It was very organic. And that way we weren't worried about strength and this and that. Because, I mean, look, we're dealing with high school kids. You get on a Friday night, well, they may not adjust to your tight end trade like you thought they would.
No,
So,
that's right.
that's
I actually kind of like that. We didn't do that. We did script everything out. But I think that sometimes it was useless, to be honest. I think the only negative of what Tracy and them did would be you got to bet a lot on yourself. Because I had to make sure I didn't forget stuff, or I like the script for me sometimes because I wanted to run every play on the hash X amount of times or whatever. But if you feel confident you got everything in, then it's just more reps of calling it like Friday. Now, we did do the scouts a little bit like what Tracy's saying. I didn't get crazy with how they lined up. We gave them some key things, and sometimes we played with 12 and just let them kind of make it miserable. And then what we did in individual, when we were in more of a group or an individual period, we may do this one blitz. Like we kind of scripted and went a little slower and showed them exactly what we're going to see and did it 4 or 5 times in a row or something like that.
We used to always, in goal line, go versus 12. Always line up 12 defenders on goal line. Just, make it hard.
What did y'all do, Pete? Did y'all look at their third down defense mainly, or what did you do with that?
Well, so more time. So, we got something a couple of years ago. Daniel Bruner and his staff at Walton, we went to a camp over there one summer, and they have a drill that we loved. They call it first and third, right? Spot the ball, you play first down, and wherever the play ends, incomplete, gain of 4, loss of 4, doesn't matter. Second down doesn't exist. You turn around and you play third down, right? Statistically, if you look at it, success on first down, especially possession and 10 to start a drive, has a direct correlation to success in the drive, right?
Absolutely.
There's a stat, I think it's Pro Analytics, that's been floating around on Twitter for a while, that in 2017 it was something to the effect of teams that started a drive with a gain of more than 6 yards greatly increased the chance of scoring on that drive. And so what we started thinking after we liked that drill so much because we liked the situation it put our kids in of understanding, hey, we got to win first down. And then regardless of what happened in first down, understanding here's your third down situation, how are you going to adapt to it? So not only did we start pulling that into some of our competition periods of practice, it really became part of our approach for game plan. So I started to just pay attention. What are you going to get on first down? Starting with trips, like Tracy said, is there one trips check on the rundown that's different than what you're going to get on a passing down? And is there a way to take advantage of it? And then past that, the focus became specifically third and 6 plus, right? Mm-hmm. Focusing on third down. And so outside of what's their base, what are we getting on first? What are we getting in third down situations? What are we getting in the red zone? And that really became our focus for what we wanted to do and kind of how we wanted to treat it. And so, the way our practice works out, Wednesdays we have really 2 specific periods that we tell our kids these are our third down periods. But everything I'm working during the third down period on Wednesday, we've been working it Monday and Tuesday because we do script. We script it by the hash. We script down and distance. And we have an offensive coach that's responsible. As soon as the ball is spotted, he's going to, hey, third and 8. We expect to hear it echoed in the huddle. And then, we're scripting off of our call sheet during practice, the whole week. So we do spend a good bit of time on third down. So we think a lot about openers, third down, and then, like I said, red zone. In my opinion, and again, this goes back to the days on defense, second and long is one of the most predictable downs for every offense. we all know what's happening on 3rd and long. It's screen draw or drop back pass. I mean, it's a no-brainer, right? But if you go back and go look at yourself on 2nd and long. And if you're a pro-style offense, it means you're throwing a hitch or you're running boot, right? If you're a spread offense, you're throwing stick or snag or tunnel. And there's all these, if you're a wing T team, you're either running down, trap, or waggle. It's there. Those statistics are there. So on 2nd down, really, we don't spend a lot of time paying attention to what they're doing defensively. But on my call sheet, 2nd down for me is all about my guys, right? Who are my dudes? And then at that point, it's let me get it to my Jimmy and hope he's better than their Joe.
Somebody asked, do any of you intentionally script plans for 1st, 2nd down combos to combat tendencies going into the week? My answer to that would be I put this call sheet up, kind of formatted a little weird, but it was in Excel. But I used to make this on Saturday, and I would fill it in. And sometimes I'd have more stuff than we could run. But I started with the drive starters and the base plays all were 1st and 2nd down for me, if that makes sense. I didn't really distinguish between 1st and 2nd down in my mind. I'm sure I'd had some tendencies in my head. I did. But, so we would come up with those blanks on this screen. There's actually 6. There's 6 blanks up here. I don't know if you can see them. But on each hash, so 6 for the right hash, 6 for the left hash. So there'd be 12 plays we start a drive with, and I would pick one of those 12 to start every drive because, like Pete said earlier, which was gold, you didn't get it. Starting the possession with a decent play is almost imperative to being good and at least getting that next 1st down. Because remember, a lot of times nowadays in 2020, a lot of times you starting to drive, they just scored. Let's not bullshit anybody.
Yep.
They're scoring some points too. So a lot of times you're getting the ball on the -20 because their kicker's pretty good, and you better have a decent play coming out or you're going to give it right back to them at midfield. So we tried not to worry too much about the exact tendencies, but we mixed that in. I don't know if that answered Coleman's question, but I thought the whole thing, we took all that into account, what we were good at, their tendencies, whatever. And the first half of this sheet was just regular plays that I liked at a certain formations. But I always had them drive starters might have been a trick play. It might have been just a regular old cute way to run buck sweep, but I thought we could get yards on if we needed it, and anything in between. And then we pull some of that base play list. And I spent most of the 1st and 2nd down calls in that world right there. And then Tracy answered, I guess he said, we really focus on self-scout. But I agree. Yeah. What do y'all do for that, Pete, that question? You see that chat?
Coleman, I mean, early in the game, I'm always going to find out if I've gone into the game plan thinking there's a motion that I like, I'm going to find out very early, do I still like it or have they changed something in their plan? And that's really going to dictate a good bit for me moving forward. You go back last year and, we played 11 games. I'd be willing to bet that we motioned on 7 or 8 of the first plays of each game. And kind of continued, if we may not use the same motion on 2nd down, but if we had success on 1st down, there's a good chance you were getting another motion. And so we built a good bit of our base plays and our drive starters, kind of like Coach, with, A, this is what we feel most comfortable in. B, this is what we think we're going to get, so here's how we want to attack it. So to some degree we would, but a lot of it for us, again, was built off either a formation or a motion where it's can we get them where we want them because this gives us the best chance at 4 or 5 yards to start the drive or to keep the sticks moving and stay ahead of schedule.
Drive starters for me, I've never scripted them. I mean, I know I worked when I was at Grayson, I worked for Mickey Kahn. And Mickey played safety in college, and so he came from everything with a defensive background, and he always wanted me to script our first 10 or 12 plays. And I'm not trying to poo-poo on people that do it. I never could get comfortable with it just from the standpoint of the situations and everything can change. But as far as I'm usually going to go into the game and I'm going to feel really good about 1 or 2 pass concepts that we call them full field. Curl's a great one for us. And we're going to feel really good about 1 or 2 runs And so those are generally going to be who we are on first, to start a drive. Things that I know are straight up in our wheelhouse, that are us. And, then after that, then it's just call the game as it comes.
No, that's right. I didn't always like the script. I'd never scripted out the first 10 or 15 plays. And then, like you said, I didn't knock on folks that do. But I did usually have an idea about the first 1 or 2 plays. But
yeah, I was always asked every day, what's your first play tonight, Coach?
Yeah, I mean, everybody want to know that one. But I like having a list of, like, we have 12 drive starters. We usually weren't going to play 12 drives. And I'm not going to lie, sometimes I didn't call any of them. I called something else. But I like thinking about it all week. Okay, let's say we're down 17-7. They just scored. We're getting the ball. We got to get some yards on first down. Are we just going to run this regular play we always run, or are we going to dress it up a little bit? Or if we want to run waggle or some play that was some boot or something that we normally wouldn't call, I'd call it on that drive starter usually, because if they hadn't seen it all year, you can pop it for 15, 20 yards and then just go back to regular stuff. So
right.
I like having that list. That was just my preference. It don't mean that to anybody.
No, and I have tried to do an opening script, and in the last 3 years, there might have been 2 or 3 games where I've been able to stay on script, go down the field, score, right? A lot of times you end up having to get off. You get in a situation that, the script says run ISO, and ISO is not what I want on 3rd and 12.
Well, let's not BS anybody, Pete. Those games y'all went down and scored, y'all were going to win anyway.
Well,
you know what I mean? Really, I'm not like the games where it was really easy.
Most of the time, yes, I would say maybe with the exception of one of those games, and that was literally because it was coming after an off week, and I did a crap ton of self scout.
Yeah,
and I made a concerted effort. The other thing I'll say is this: what I've started doing instead of doing like a drive script like that is I just make a list of coming out of practice, man. What are those 6, 7, 8 things that I really like that have looked good all week in practice that I think my kids are comfortable with? And as I call a game, I keep those there. And I'm usually going to start with one of those. And so they're kind of my drive starters, but they're also my, hey, don't forget about this list.
Mm-hmm. That's what that was for me too. Yep. And Dan asked right here, does it make sense to script practice if you don't script it in the game and things go to hell? And he couldn't be more right about that. The reason that I thought scripting practice was important was not because it was game-like. That was more to keep us on schedule. I wanted to run. If we sprinted out a lot on the left hash and threw verticals a lot on the right hash when we were in the long yardage type situation. So I wanted to throw these fades, throw this inside go, throw this outside go. I wanted to throw it on the correct hash, how I was going to call it, out of the format. So the script was really more for me than it was for the kids, to just keep us on schedule. But the reality is, if your script's all going to hell every week, or your plan is going to hell every week, you're throwing up in the air, and you're having to completely change stuff, then your plan really ain't worth a damn. You should just get a better feel for, okay, they stopped that ISO, they lined up a little different than we thought, so we'll still run ISO, but we're going to run it this way instead, because that's what we've been doing since spring football, not because we made it up in the huddle, or something. So there is a difference between us sitting here saying we're not that interested in a lot of this scripted stuff, because we're not, because all of us been doing this a while. But we also aren't just making shit up, I think it's important to understand we're not just going out there and saying, oh, the hell with it, run this. I thought the script in practice made me – sometimes I thought it helped us 2 and 3 weeks down the road. You know what I mean? Because we had done something over and over and over, and maybe we didn't even run it that week. But we kept it in for the next week or whatever it was,
I will say this. If you are a first-time play caller or you are new to play calling, you need to make sure there are periods in your practice where you're not scripted.
Yeah, that's right.
You may have a framework that you're operating off of, but you need to make sure that you can think and move and operate. And a lot of that stuff can obviously happen, to some degree in the summer, but early in fall camp as well. And I do think that's important. And, I know, we do a third down period against our defense once a week, and it is everybody live with the quarterback, and it's them working their game plan pressures, and it's us working our stuff. And so the kids are having to react to something different. We're forcing them to play fast. So what I do is I just write down, hey, we're going into this week. I know what my defense does. The point is not for me to win, right? I'm not trying to beat my defense. That's not going to help me on Friday night. So I'm going to write down, I don't script it. I don't care what hash it's on. I'm going to write down, here's my menu. Here are the 2 or 3 third and long and the 2 or 3 third and mediums I'm carrying into a game. And, our head coach, Vav, will come over and say, where do you want it? And I'll, I say pick a hash, or I tell him a hash. And then after that hash, nothing scripted. And I do think that's important, for your kids and also for the play caller to be able to operate. I also think that if you're a head coach, putting your sub-varsity play callers in that situation, or one of your assistants that's not a play caller, when you can find an opportunity to do that, I think you should do it.
Or if y'all saw Marco's little film today about the coaches that were first-year guys wishing they were head coaches, like me and Tracy was talking about when we came on. Y'all find those guys, put them on the spot in practice, see how damn good they do.
Yeah.
You can make a point if nothing else. But there is some truth to that. I think all of us have called plays for a long time, but if you need some practice, if you're new at this, that's great advice. You actually need to not have a script sometime.
You better have somebody damn good in the box.
Yes, amen.
That to me, I think, you're going to have to – it takes some time. Chris and I were talking before everybody got on. He did a podcast a couple weeks ago with Gary Rankin. The winningest coach in Tennessee, 400-something games won, 16 state championships. I think they've won 5 or 6 in a row.
Yep.
That was my first boss. And he always really wanted you to understand who you are, what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses. And learning that has really helped me. And so when you're calling plays, especially the first second you've ever done it, you better have somebody – you better be yin, they better be yang. You better have somebody that has a different look at it that can help you. Mm-hmm. So at West this year, our guy in the box was a receiver coach. He was a younger coach. And we were trying to kind of limit focus. I think that's one of the things you can do with somebody in the box that's newer, limit their focus to this or this. And then our O-line was really good at seeing the box on the field. So, you better have somebody else you can listen to. And I know I have, as I was a head coach for a long time, I know I've came across like an asshole when I'm calling plays in the middle of a game, but I don't want to hear a lot. I don't want to hear suggestions when we got the ball.
Right.
Make those when we don't have the football. I'm making notes, and then we're going back. Now, if somebody was to say, hey, coach, remember you said this, then that's different. But, some people are so different about that. Like Pete may be one it's a very fluid communication. For me, it's usually one guy on the staff that I'm going to have a lot of talking, that I'm going to communicate with more than anybody. But, that's hard. It's hard because, as everybody knows, it's call plays. You're not thinking about the next one. You're thinking about the 4 from now. And it's hard to just hear that. That's always one that – and I'll cross like a jerk, but I'm just like, man, talk to me when we don't have the football.
I pretty much just sat there and acted real Christian-like and was real polite to all those guys.
I take my headsets
off. I don't think anybody's on here that can dispute that tonight. So,
what about you, Pete?
I'll say this, man, and I think it's hard, especially when you're young, but you have to know yourself. And I know I'm stubborn as hell when it comes to competition. Like you can talk to me about anything. When it's time to compete, things change. But I give my guys literally when Friday before we go out, I look at different coaches and I give them jobs. And I may look at one of them and say, hey, snap count. That's your job. Remind me to change the damn snap count. Or I may look at one of them and just, look, hey, if I start getting crazy, remind me, Atlanta. Call Atlanta. And we kind of joke about it. But that's kind of the one thing that they know that I want to hear, that if we're sitting there and something's going on, and a lot of times, that communication is going to happen between drives. But every now and again, a play's going on, I'm already looking at my call sheet, thinking about the next situation. And, all of a sudden my running back coach will just buzz in and go, snap count. and I'll, go freeze or whatever on the next play. So I think knowing yourself too, and again, like Tracy was said, limiting focus and scope, right? Give a guy a job. And if that job's to tell you something, make sure he's going to do it, but give him one job. Give him, let him focus on that one thing. And I think that can be helpful.
Yeah, that's actually really good advice. I wasn't real good at that. I'm going to be honest. I gave him the job of shutting the hell up, basically. But I wish we would. I do think that's a great advice it's easier when you're the head coach calling plays, nobody questions you, and you're going for it and all that. But I do think that's really good though. Because you do need those reminders. There is a difference between you being helpful and reminding us to change the snap count and you trying to come up with your cockamamie thing that you think we can run.
Yeah, I don't want an idea. I want a reminder.
No, that's a great way to put it. Right there.
That's a great way to put it.
That's a great way to put it. Hey, we had a question Zach asked a minute ago. Y'all see the chat where it says, "You guys build your call sheet related to a progression of play calls, or is your thought process driven more by taking shots at weak points identified on film?" I think the answer is both, right?
My best call games are when I've built it off progression of play calls.
Right.
That's how we build it. That's not always how it gets called. When it comes down to execution and the dudes on the field. But I do think that, look, I mean, I know, Parker, you've got a background in the wing T offense, and it doesn't matter what you run. If you don't have a system and you don't have a structure, you're just out there grabbing, right? Yeah. And whether you want to be an air raid or you want to get under center and run flex bone, as long as you have an understanding of what helps each play, what protects each play, and you have an understanding of building the call sheet with that in mind, you give yourself a chance as a play caller.
Yeah, because the answer is you got to have both. I mean, for us, those drive starters and some of the situational stuff like long yardage or red zone or something like that might have been really based on something we saw from them that was weak. We saw their sorry corner, and we were going to find a way to get our better kid on their sorry corner and throw it up. I mean, that was part – I think the bulk of way more than half had to be just your regular stuff and how you progress from one thing to the next. If you're not in high school ball, you're not going to be real successful if you don't have a base plan and some plays off of that. But that's a good question. Let me ask y'all these questions. I wrote down these questions to ask you guys, and I'll be honest, I don't hardly know the answer, so I hope y'all do. Is there anything else you look for first that we didn't talk about? Is there anything specific that you would look for game planning for somebody that we hadn't talked about? And we've hit about everything.
Yeah, not really. Not really. I mean, you try to find some tendencies, but I mean that's
you can overthink that too, guys. You can overthink.
Yes.
You can overthink.
Oh Lord,
that.
yeah. I mean, you can just. Yeah. I got caught up in that. I mean, in the semifinals this year, I got so well. Number one, and disagree with, but we got to the semifinals, and I'm pretty fortunate, man. I've been in Tennessee, Georgia, and Alabama. I know a lot of people. We played a team in the semis, and I had all 13 films, and I literally watched all 13 films. It was too damn much, and I wasn't really chasing ghosts, but I was so caught up in. Again, going back to this linebacker they had, trying to pinpoint where I can get him, where I want him, that it just, it took us some time. We just, so yeah, trying to focus too much on something minuscule and watching too much damn film, because you can. I don't care what anybody says. You can watch.
You can.
Just 3 films, get an idea, go be yourself, and get them ready to play.
And that fit into us I said, if we had 13 films on somebody, we would have picked the 3 like us and watched them on the weekend and focused on that. Now, I might would have let them other 10 run, while I was sitting in ISS or something. You know what I mean? Just in case something stood out or whatever. But you're right, man. I'm going to be honest with you. There ain't so many ways they can play trips. There ain't so many ways they can play box. And we tried to be ready for all of them every week. I don't know if that was possible, but the plan was, even if we were wrong and they came up with some new way, we've already practiced that. There's only about 5 or 6 ways they can do this. So
I'll say this, and it's something I try to do, and maybe I'm crazy for doing it, and I've probably been wrong several times, but I try to look at, what else you look for. I look at us, right? If last year our tailback ran for 1,700 yards, 233 carries, there was no secret he was getting the football, right? So, okay, what are they likely to do? What have they shown that they're most likely to do if we're running the ball on them like we think we can, right? Because now I need to have an answer, and that answer doesn't have to have a lot of time because that answer needs to be something we already do naturally. You know what I'm saying? So I try to spend a little bit of time, or if I've got a receiver who's nursing an ankle, right? Well, if he turns that ankle in the game and he's not nursing it, but he's sitting his butt on the sideline, how does that affect my calls? I try to spend a little bit of time thinking about us, thinking about, what they have to think about us or what their plan is most likely to be. And when they get me in that oh crap situation, whether it's due to a kid on my team, like I said, that's injured, or just they have the ability to go lock something down, I want to make sure that in my back pocket I have an oh crap plan for that.
Yeah, I think nowadays it's important to have those for getting the plans to be up 14 early you didn't expect, or be down 14 early you didn't expect. And you know what I mean? Because the games are so much longer than they used to be.
Yep.
In terms of it's not over. We first started coaching. If you gave up 17, you might as well just went on and shook their hands and went home.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Bag it in.
Now, we had a team, Woodstock High School down the road, won a game a couple years ago, down 35, I think, in the playoffs.
Yeah.
So it can happen. And of course, if you're up 35, you can lose it, so you got to have these plans for that. A couple questions came in that basically are the same thing as I got up here, which is, when is it too much? When do you change the plan? When you see too much, and you already talked kind of about seeing too much film, but when is it too many plays? How many plays you carrying on 3rd and long? How many can you realistically work? We can't tell you the exact number, but there is a number.
Wait, if you find that answer, I'll pay you $100. And I would love to have it. Look, it's all about the kids you have, right? Year one at the Sprayberry, and it was a major shift in what we were doing offensively. And I had to find a way that I could get my kids to understand and handle enough to allow me to be versatile. But the one thing I had was a quarterback that mentally could handle it all, right? So how much I was able to carry was in so many ways based on what he could carry. And he could, it's easy if your receivers operate in their little wheelhouse of understanding post, corner, curl, and they've got their route tree, and that's where you focus on, those guys and being. If the quarterback can handle the change, the receiver should be able to handle the change. I'm always going to keep it simple for the O-line. Mm-hmm. If you're not building it from the front, then in my opinion, you've got a lot of problems. So to me, so much of it comes down to what can the quarterback handle. And, my kid this past year, he's a smart kid. He's a good player. He was going to be better if we kept it down to 2 or 3 schemes, but showed him multiple looks and made him go through and work the different scenarios. Mm-hmm. That's how he was going to find success. Not if I carried 5 things to have an answer for everything they might do. It's hell no, we're going to carry 2. Here's what our answer has to be.
Yeah, my flavor is always to carry 2 and make.
I'll go back to Gary Rankin. That's what Rankin drilled it in me from my early years coaching, and we still carry it today. It's too much when it's the answer to when it's too much, Pete, is when it's too much for the O-line.
That's right.
Because skill kids, if you've got skill kids that are dynamic, they're going to be dynamic whether you're doing a lot or a little. At West this year, we had a 6'2", 230-pound running back. He was going to truck somebody's ass whether we did a bunch or a little. But if the offensive line, if it starts getting to where your O-line's doing this and turn around and asking the offensive line coach 14,
it's too much.
It's too much. And that to me is always when we know it's too much whenever it's starting to freak those 5 out. That's to me. And then
that's the best way to put it.
Back to who we are.
No, that's the best way to put it. And as far as the number of plays you would carry in a situation like Pete's talking about, my opinion, you would do less and try to be good at them. So if you were going to run this vertical concept, you do it versus, you just do it versus the regular look you expect. You do it versus some kind of blitz. You do it versus somebody got jammed. Like practice the oh shit situations in practice for that 1 or 2 plays instead of trying to come up with 5 or 6. Because there's no way you're going to guess right very often, to be honest, on which one you pick. One of the questions a second ago was fit into this one. When do you change the plan? Like, at what point there's a medium point of, they stopped this 2 or 3 times. We don't need to give up on it now. And then there's a certain point where you're like, the hell with that. That was stupid. We worked it all week for nothing. Let's work this. What do you think about that? When is the point of no return on, we got to scrap some of this crap we worked all week and go to something else?
For me, it's on when I write it out and it don't fit on that 4x6 note card. Then it's just too much. Because I think sometimes as coaches, you've referenced a couple times, Chris. We've ran it since spring ball. Take it even further. Like, okay, we finished the season, and then we're spending all winter studying, and you're in the weight room with your kids, and you're trying to project, okay, we're going to be able to do this. We should be good at these things. So I think that if you're 3 or 4 games in and you're changing the plan of who we are, then something catastrophic's probably happened. You've had multiple injuries, whatever. Because I would put that back on what did you do in the offseason? How did you really look at yourself? Were you really critical of yourself? Were you really taking a hard look at who you are and who you're going to be? Now, to me, the biggest thing about changing the plan is going to come back to injuries. That to me is, you start having a couple of guys that you're really going to depend on go down. Now you got to shrink that plan a great deal. That's my.
No, that's right.
Yeah, I agree with you. In game, it can be a little bit different, obviously, whether it's a kid goes down in the game, even scoreboard, honestly, I don't get off script very much, even if we're down, until it's late in the game. I'm gonna try to do my best to stick with what we are and some of that. I do think obviously there's times where something works and you ride it till it dies. So there's definitely times where you do come off your script. But in my opinion, most of those games are either the ones you were going to win anyway or the ones that everybody expects you to lose anyway.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I've had very few games where I felt like I've had to come off. And to be honest, the most crippling, in my opinion, feeling as a play caller is when you have to make a decision. I don't want to say to pack it in, but to protect what you have.
Right.
We had a game against Dalton in 2017 where they were better than us up front defensively. They were scoring points on offense. They were scoring points on special teams. And we weren't having a whole lot of success moving the football. And I looked at my offensive staff and I said, guys, if we're going to win games moving forward, we have to be able to run inside zone. It's our best run play. And we have to protect our quarterback. And right now we're not doing either very well. So we spent majority of that second half listening to boos from the stands, but we were running our inside zone. And we came out of it on Monday and we sat down with our kids, and our kids were like, Coach, we have so much more confidence in it now. And so we took it on the chin that game, and we got off script, and it was damn 3rd and 8, and there's times I'm calling inside zone. But the head coach and I had the conversation. He understood what we were doing. And moving forward, it made us a better football team,
Absolutely.
So I do think, like I said, there's times where you come off. But I think that's probably the most humbling. But in some ways, that can also be the best thing you can do for your team. If you suddenly feel like you're down and you start saying, well, crap, we got to throw a bunch of screens and trying to throw 4 verts all the time, it ain't going to go well.
No, exactly. Coleman had a question a few minutes ago, but I was trying to get caught up on some questions here. How much do you delegate game planning duties? And he says, I asked some coaches, asked to coach some of the coaches. How do I include them? The answer to that, you can take the cop-out answer is it depends on who they are. Unfortunately, there's not a one-fit thing for that. I think you got as a head coach, and I know Coleman's a head coach, you got to figure out what your guys' strengths are and go there. If Tracy and Pete coach for me, I'm probably going to coach defense, leave them the hell alone. But if it's some guys that hadn't done a lot of this, then I'm going to have to sit there with them and show them what to do. I love what Pete said earlier about giving them something. And I think that could be good on the weekend, but also in the game. So that same guy that had snap count for his reminder, then on Saturday he gets whatever. He gets, he's the guy that's checking, something. Maybe he's a receiver coach and he scouts the corner and he tells Pete to remember to change the snap count. And he also is the guy that watches all third and longs. And he, or something. And he's got a job. Give him a job.
I'd say this to Coleman. Coleman, I would also do this too, and it's hard to do it during the season, but let's say your whole staff's going to be back next year. I would sit down and teach guys not only how to watch film. That's one of my favorite questions to ask a college guy. How do you watch film? Not how do you what's your game plan? How do you watch film? What are you looking for? And I think that's important to, like, in the off season, hey, finish the year. You come back after Christmas break and just say, hey, guys, today after school, we're going to sit down and we're going to just watch an opponent's film from last year. And that way you can sit down and show them, these are the things I'm looking at. I would use the Belichick. Bill Belichick makes all his young guys come in and teaches them how to pad a game. And I know Jeb Stewart's on here. Jeb sent me some stuff a while back. My man was literally padding a game and had like 19 different color pens, every different. But, I mean, that teaches you football. My little subtle details that, like you're watching film and you're getting a sideline cut and the right guard's ass is deeper every time he pulls left. Okay, maybe you need to teach a guy that. Some guys just don't see that. So that's something I think that's really helpful that I tried to do as a head coach was we would try to sit down and talk about, okay, this, because I think you're the head man. You have to show them these are the things I believe, and this is what I'm looking to get from you. Because I know as a going from assistant to the head man back to an offensive coordinator, I got to make sure. I heard Jim Chaney at UT, the clinic, talk about the offensive play caller's job is to score points using the philosophy of the head coach. And I think that, just because I'm an 11 personnel guy, I think the job I got now, I convinced the head coach in an interview, look, you and I are very similar. We're 85%, 90% similar philosophy. Teach your guys what your philosophy is and then teach them how to look on film and apply it. I think that's something I would try to do again.
Yeah. I think, and I've had some opportunities to speak and do some things before, particularly when I was coaching defense. And I used to always start with coach your staff. If you're not coaching your staff, it doesn't matter if you're coaching your players because everybody's got to be on the same page. And I think now that I'm, a little bit older is, I would say coach your staff, but give them responsibility, but also find feedback, right? And I had a chance to sit down and talk with John Schlarman, the offensive line coach at University of Kentucky last week. And one of the things he talked about with Eddie Gran is when they're in their staff room and they're game planning for a week, everybody in the room, he goes around, and it doesn't matter if it's the new quality control guy or it's the receiver coach has been there for 10 years. What do you like this week? And he's always going to get their feedback. And one of the things that gives you an opportunity to do is, one, find out where's the value you have in the room. But I think it also gives you a chance to turn around and maybe if they suggest something, there's a way to show them why you don't necessarily agree with them.
Yeah.
And it's a way to kind of, I think, build your staff. And I mean, Coleman, me and the guys that I work with. I mean, my O-line guys, they're going to hear it. It's one of the first things they're going to hear every Sunday is, what's our best run against them, and the truth is we all know what the answer is most of the time, but if they think something different than I do, I want to know what it is and I want to know why, and I want to think it through and make sure that they're not right and I'm wrong, so I do think giving them, the hard part is they have to understand responsibility, right? They only need to wear the hat that you give them until you give them another one. And I think we've probably all been there where there's the guy that always tries to do more than what you want him to do. And there's a difference in being proactive and helpful and having your finger in everything, so.
Yeah, I think it's important if you're teaching coaches, keep in mind to make them coach you. I thought the best time I learned more talking to people like you guys, trying to show you something, is when you really have to know you have a grasp on it. You know, so when that coach can stand up, like Trey said, if they're in a meeting and they like something and they can stand up and say, no, coach, this is why we need to do this, and they can show you, I can get on board with that. But,
yes.
you know, and they need to be able to show you. They need to be able to teach you. And I tried to, and I'm not going to act like I was great at this, but I tried to make the coaches almost teach me like I was the dumbest person in the room, what they're trying to get accomplished. And the ones who are the best can do that. So you're looking to see how competent they really are, if they can fool you. Sometimes people can fool you with a couple of buzzwords or a couple sentences, or they have a hard time teaching it to you if they're really trying to explain
Go
it.
on a coaches clinic, man. Like we used to do coaches retreats. We did best, and we did it before. And one of the things that's really good is a head coach is sit back, or an offensive coordinator is sit back and say, okay, Chris, you're the receivers coach. Here's your marker. Get on the board.
Yeah.
Show us how you coach receivers. Take us from one. What are the drills you're running? You know, and you'll find out real quick, does the guy know his stuff? Does he have it screwed on straight? Or is he just grasping at straws and really needs you to help him and guide him?
No, that's right.
I will tell you real quick that one of the best things I've ever experienced as a football coach, I spent a year coaching in South Florida, and our entire staff flew up to Liberty University. Danny Rocco was the head coach. And when we got there, they were in the middle of spring ball, getting ready to go on spring break. And the day we arrived, what they had going on was the quarterback coach was in the defensive staff room with the entire defensive staff. And one of the defensive assistant coaches was in the room with the entire offensive staff. And so I was coaching secondary at the time, sat in the back of the room, and it was all about, they would watch film and go, okay, coach, why are they attacking us like this? And that that quarterback coach, it was Brandon Streeter, who played at Clemson. He may be coaching at Clemson now, would get on the board and he'd go, well, here's what they know. When you're doing this, here's how they want to respond. And watching guys at that level, and they were a competitive program at the time, and they are now, but watching them coach and teach each other, because Streeter would then turn around and say, why do y'all do that? And they were teaching each other opposite sides of the ball, but literally walking right down to, this is how I'm coaching it. This is how we drill it. And sitting in that room and hearing them, you know, so I think I say that to say, you know, if you're an offensive coordinator, get your defensive coordinator or a guy on your staff or a guy that you know, get them in the room and let your coaches bounce ideas off somebody else, right? It's a great way for them to learn.
Absolutely. Got a question from Nathan, the last one on here, I think, says, so far, if you got another one, put it in there. It says, how many runs would you go into the game plan with? How many passes? Would it change based on the opponent? I mean, you know, it's a hard question to answer, but, you know, we kept 4 or 5 base runs and, you know, play action off of them and some quick game, and, you know, and that was about it. But what's your answer to that?
Go ahead, Pete. Go first.
It you know, kind of depends on how you want to draw the line. I mean, we were going to run, you know, for us, our split zone and our mid zone and our ISO, it's all the exact same blocking scheme. We're changing what one dude's doing, maybe 2 dudes, you know. And so from our standpoint, we think of it as families. We're going to carry no more than 3 families, right? You know, and there may be 3 variations from our mid-zone family, 2 variations from our outside zone family, and 1 gap scheme. But that's it. You know, we may not run outside zone one week. It may be in, you know, our mid-zone family with our power and counter families, and our variations off of it that we're going to, again, keep it the same for the O-line, but allow me to window dress it. So at the end of the day, I'm asking my front to my guys to rep 3 predominant run schemes against everything they could throw at me.
We'll carry inside zone, out wide zone, pin pull if we're good at it. If not, we'll scrap it, and then we'll carry power counter. So we're basically carrying a zone and gap. We're gonna carry couple of quick games. We have 4 quick games in our offense. We're only going to usually throw 2. We got a couple of full field concepts, some maybe one sprint. I've never been good at sprint. I don't know why. I'd love to study it more. We do it, but we don't do it great. And one of the things that I think the guy I worked for the last 2 years, and then screens, our goal line stuff, and our 2 tight end stuff, to try and mix up some personnel on people, which we don't do a ton. One of the things that I think we've really started doing this year, the last couple of years, the guy I worked for really pushed me in this direction, is having a 5-minute period on Tuesday or Wednesday that was specifically dedicated to shot plays. And so we're going to usually carry about 4 shot plays or 5 shot plays. One of the best compliments I got this year in a game, we had a kid that played for us. His dad was a starting quarterback at the University of Tennessee, played in the NFL. And he told me after a game one night, he said, Coach, he said, your offense looks like the 1970s Oakland Raiders. Grind, take a shot. Grind, take a shot. And that was really cool to kind of hear that. But that's something we do a ton is focus on that. Focus on what are our shots, what are the best things against what they do, and then practice 5 minutes on Tuesday, 5 minutes on Wednesday. A lot of stuff we practice on air too, like goal lines on air for us, except in camp. Our 2 tight end stuff's on air usually. Our screens are always on air. Our bootleg stuff's always on air. We do a lot of timing and spacing, but I would really take a real hard look at your shot. Pete pulled out stats earlier about if you're successful on first down, you win a game. We all know about turnover percentages, but, man, I'm telling you, start breaking down
explosive
touchdown over 60 yards, how many times you win a football game.
Mm-hmm. No, it's a big one. Oakland Raiders, baby. Hey, 70s Oakland Raiders, Kenny Stabler. That's Foley High School, baby. That's where I went to high school. So
no doubt.
Good get there. Alabama. Anybody else got a question? Feel free to ask. I'm out of questions. I could ask a bunch more, but I'm not going to keep everybody here all night. Maybe just running my mouth. If
anybody, and I'm sure Pete will do the same, if anybody wants contact info,
yeah,
I'm on Twitter at Coach TM9. My cell number is 423-790-6287. You're hitting me up anytime. Back to you, I promise.
Yeah, it's the same thing. I know a lot of the names on here tonight are guys that I'm already familiar with. But it's at Coach DeWeese. You can see my last name on screen here. Pretty easy to find. Shoot me a message. I'll give you my number, and I'll talk to you about whatever, man. I just love talking shop, and I even get to talk to guys like Tracy every now and again. Make me feel smart.
No doubt.
Hey, I appreciate you guys, man. It's been good. We have to get on here and talk some other stuff every now and then.
Yes, sir.
Definitely. Thank you for asking. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Thank you guys.
Good time.
Yeah, take care.